Many people know bridging movements from Eastern disciplines like yoga. As a result, many people think of the bridge as a hold. You get into, say, a full bridge and you hold it, like this. In traditional Western-type strength training where bridging movements are still used to strengthen the spine, wrestling and gymnastics are good examples. The bridge is a dynamic movement. It involves motion. It's not just a static hold. You move up and down. The way bridges are done in American prisons is more akin to the Western way. When you do pull-ups, you do, say, 2 sets of 10 repetitions. The same is true for push-ups or leg raises. It's also true for bridges. Don't just push up into a single bridge, hold it, then relax. When you bridge, perform sets and reps the exact same way you would for any other exercise. Yoga is great for suppleness and gentle toning, but if you want a powerful spine with dense tendons and thicker muscles, you should be using the bridge to repeatedly move your body weight up and down. Muscles gain size and strength fastest when you fatigue their cellular energy, and the most efficient way to do this is through movement under resistance. Using bridges as a moving up and down exercise will also work more muscle groups than just holding the top position of a bridge. Your back has evolved to move, and as you press up and down into your bridges, emphasis shifts from one set of muscles to others. There certainly are benefits to holding the bridge at the top, not least the fact that it stimulates the deepest layer of spinal tissue. Combine both techniques. Move during bridging practice and pause at the top. This leads us automatically to the next commandment. There are lots of exercises which work the posterior chain. You can do hamstring curls for the back of the thighs, hyperextensions or deadlifts for the spine, shrugs for the trapezius muscles, and so on. But no exercise in existence works the spine as well as the bridge. Many other exercises, particularly weighted exercises, move the back up and down, but bridging works the spinal arch to its maximum degree. This in turn works the deepest muscles of the spine, the ones running along and in between the vertebrae, which are often only superficially worked by barbell training. The bridge, essentially, is an exercise in arching the spine under the body's own resistance. The arch is most pronounced at the top of the bridge when you're pushing as high as you can. For this reason, to strengthen the deep muscles of the back as much as possible, you should milk your bridges by always pausing at the top when you're at your most arched for at least a count of 1. A 2 count would be better if you really want to reap the rewards of a powerful spinal arch. Powerful, healthy spinal erectors which are trained to arch well are worth their weight in gold to any strength athlete. Any architect will tell you how strong an arch is. When the spine is convex and rounds forward, you risk all types of nasty back injury. That's why when we lift heavy objects, we're told to arch the back slightly if we can. It makes us stronger and much safer. We arch the back when we pick something up or curl something. Powerlifters even arch their spines during upper body movements like the bench press. Make the most of your bridging exercises, and always make the effort to hold it when the arch is at its highest point. It will be incredibly worthwhile if you do this. With a lot of exercises, such as squats, push-ups, and leg raises, athletes are often advised to breathe a certain way. For example, during a push-up, it's helpful to inhale on the way down and breathe out on the way up. This use of alternating breathing relative to your direction exploits the natural expansion and contraction of the rib cage. When you begin performing more difficult bridges, your chest will be consistently open and your diaphragm stretched. At first, you'll find it difficult to take in enough air. For this reason, the best approach to breathing during bridging isn't to try and link breathing to your movement. Instead, just try to breathe as normally and smoothly as possible. Avoid heavy, panting, choppy breaths and focus on drawing in the good lungfuls of air you need during healthy exercise. This will be tough at first because your ribs may be stiff, but do your best. Over time, your rib cage will gain strength and flexibility, and you'll be able to breathe deeply and smoothly when you bridge. Never hold your breath when you bridge. A lot of bridgers tend to spread their legs pretty wide. Sometimes for wall walking bridges or closing bridges, advanced forms of bridging we will look at later, spreading the feet extra wide makes the exercise easier because it places you lower to the ground to begin with. If you're going to bend over backwards into a bridge, you're at an instant advantage if you're closer to the ground. The reality is, though, that very wide stances are a type of cheating. Plus, they put the hips in a vulnerable position when you're bending back, and this can irritate them. Whenever you bridge, right from step one, avoid wide stances. Keep your feet shoulder width or a little narrower. Get into this movement pattern and you'll gain greater strength and flexibility in bridging. When you get to later, more advanced stages, you won't need tricks because you'll have a grounding in good technique from the start. It's a common mistake, usually amongst men, to push up into bridges using mostly upper body strength. Some guys bridge by pushing hard through the arms while their legs are virtually relaxed by comparison. It's no wonder that in some circles the full bridge performed for reps is actually called the reverse push-up. This approach is the wrong one. The muscles of the posterior chain and even the spine are complex and are activated by both the upper and lower limbs. You need to push into a full bridge with your arms and your legs. This is why prison bodyweight systems often focus on basic bridging exercises which teach athletes how to bridge with the legs before the arms, so the lower body doesn't get forgotten down the road. When pressing into a bridge, push down through the hands and feet and continue pushing in an attempt to totally straighten your arms and legs. Unless you are a contortionist and the perfect bridger, you won't actually be able to achieve this, but it's a good visualization technique to remember if you find yourself only pushing up with your arms. When a lot of guys do push-ups, they neglect to think what their hands are doing. And this is a mistake because the forearms, elbows, and upper arms follow the hands. That just means that the biomechanics of the lower and upper arms is directly linked to what the hands are doing. A lot of guys push through the palms, particularly the palm heel. This is wrong. Whenever you press off your hands, whether in a push-up, a handstand push-up, or during a bridge, you should spread the tension evenly through your entire hand. Not just the palms, but also all the fingers and the thumbs too. Pressing this way not only strengthens the hands, it also transmits the moving forces of the exercise more evenly up the forearm. This in turn leads to fewer strain injuries to the forearm and elbows. These kinds of injuries, like golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, or carpal tunnel, are common in weightlifting because during pressing motions, the hands are wrapped around a bar, and the digits aren't free to extend as they evolve to. So when you bridge, use those digits and learn to push through the entire hand. Many athletes, when they bridge, are at a loss as to what to do with their head. They either struggle to hold their head up, or they just let it flop backwards under gravity. Both of these options are bad ideas. The noggin is pretty heavy. It can weigh upwards of 10 pounds. Straining to hold your head up while you bridge will quickly tire out the muscles of the throat, and letting your head just drop down does nothing for your bridging and may even injure the vertebrae of the neck. So how should you move your head during bridges? When you're bridging, certainly if you're doing anything beyond angle bridges, you should forget your head and instead focus on pressing your chin up towards the ceiling. This action will automatically control the backwards rotation of your head. Keep pushing until you can see the wall behind you, and then stop. This technique activates the hard-to-reach muscles of the upper spine, the cervical spine, and makes this area more flexible and healthy. All forms of bridging strongly activate the lumbar spine and T-spine, but activating the C-spine as well will go a long way to improving your total suppleness and spinal strength. It will also improve your posture and, if performed correctly, eliminate a lot of neck pain. A lot of strength coaches, the good ones anyway, talk about squeezing the glutes, the butt muscles, during any back movement. This is because the glutes act as stabilizers to the vertebrae of the lower back, cushioning the lumbar area and giving an internal layer of protection. When you are bridging, however, you don't need to worry about consciously squeezing your glutes. Instead, when you reach the top of any bridge movement, focus on pushing your hips up as high as they will go. You may only manage an inch or two of extra height. That's fine. But when you think you're at the top, make that extra effort to press the hips up into the air. The glutes are the muscles at the back that extend the hips. So by pushing your hips high, you're not only performing a better bridge, you're automatically contracting your glutes during the action. This motion will also release any tension in the tight hip flexors at the front, rendering them more flexible. So when you bridge, don't concentrate on tensing any individual muscle group. You don't need to. Concentrate on the action of pushing your hips up, and you'll increase your strength and flexibility while simultaneously protecting your lower back. When you see a lot of athletes bridge, particularly when using advanced variations like wall walking, you'll often see them lift their heels and go on tiptoes like this. The justification is that this action takes pressure off the lower back. It is true that pressing down through the heels during bridging, or during any exercise where your feet are on the floor, activates the posterior chain of muscles. For this reason, lifting your heels can make you feel less tension in your back during bridging. But this is the opposite of what you want. The whole point of bridging is to train the deep muscles of the spine and posterior chain. If bridging causes your lower back to become sore because you lack flexibility, the solution isn't to lift your heels. The solution is to improve your flexibility. You do this by working through the bridging series methodically, increasing your hip and spine flexibility at the same pace as your strength. Keep your heels flat on the floor to get the most out of your bridging. Never raise your heels. Bridging is a peak contraction exercise. This means that the muscles of the hips and spine, which are not used to being contracted much at all in modern life, are made to flex as hard as possible to arch the spine. After you finish, your back will feel pumped up and tight where the tension has been generated. If you flex your biceps hard, all the waste accumulated in the biceps drains away quite quickly because the biceps is simple and usually hangs quite relaxed. But the muscles of the spine and hips are complex and tighten a little as soon as you stand or sit up. For this reason, your back can hold a lot of tension for a while after bridging. So briefly stretching out your back after a set of bridges is a wonderful idea. You can perform some standing forward bends or just round your spine forwards for 10 seconds while lying on the floor. Another option would be to follow a set of bridges with one of the leg raise movements, which stretch out the spine as you strengthen your core. Alternating these two is a particularly efficient way to train. Not only will this post-set stretching feel great because you're releasing the waste and tension built up in your back, but you'll also find you're more flexible after bridging because your nervous system is fired up and easier to control. You don't have to stretch hard, but if you're into serious stretching, maybe you're a martial artist, performing forward stretches immediately after bridging is a wonderful idea. Because your back is hot and full of blood, the chances of a stretching injury will be greatly reduced.